Hi guys, Nat here. I am challenging myself this year to do one of these videos a month. I have a bit of a problem with I do the videos and then I get so waylaid in trying to upload them and figuring out how to edit it and how to get all of the pieces all fantastic that I get so, I don't know, bogged down in the whole idea that my editing's not so great that I don't actually end up loading anything, and then by the time I go, no, come back to it and, get it done, the content's no longer relevant. Or like a prime example is my Easter egg bags. I still haven't uploaded it, but I guess I can upload it in time for next Easter. Anywho, so today I'm going to make some tea towel toppers. I need extra tea towel toppers in my house, and they make my house feel a little bit bright and cheerful. But also with my toddler, he gets really into having a little personalised tea towel topper for his hand towel. Okay, so over to Cricut Design Space, and in my profile you'll find the pencil tea towel topper, and you can open it up and then we'll have a look through the project. I've changed the names here. This is applique pieces because these pieces here are all the applique pieces. But if we right click and we have a look at the image information, we can see that this image was originally designed by Erica Digital Designs, and it had a face and it had a little drawing there as well. And I had thought perhaps later, after I've finished the tile topper, I could even do this little love heart squiggle as either iron-on or as like a sashiko or embroidery stitch. So that's where the picture has come from, and the reason I show you this is that angle that we've got here. It's going to come into play when we get back to our pieces here. So we've got our pencil here, and we can see how that it's on the angle. So when we go over to make it, we're going to need to adjust some of our pieces. These are our applique pieces, and they're going to be cut out. And we'll use heat and bond on these pieces. We'll actually put the heat and bond on the fabric first, and then when we're over into Cricut Design Space on the matte screen, we're going to mirror it so that we put the fabric side down on our mat so that our heat and bond doesn't get stuck to our mat. And then we will cut those out, and they'll be already heat and bonded. They'll cut out really clean. It'll be lovely. Okie dokie. So they're all applique pieces. They don't have a seam allowance. They are as they are. If you were going to do needle turn applique, you would then add your little seam allowance here, making sure to take this piece off because you don't want to weld your offsets, and then add in your seam allowance, however big your seam allowance is going to be. If the offsets are welded, it'll only make the outside, whereas you want to make all of those little pieces. Add your seam allowance there if you're doing needle turn. Alrighty, this piece here is an iron-on piece, and it goes over the top here. So this for me is going to be a silver grey. I'm using it's called a flat fat. It's from Spotlight, which is our local. I guess it's the same as sort of your Joann's and your Michaels and things like that. I'm using the light grey fat flat. It's sort of a mochily colour, so that's going to be the colour for my top of my pencil eraser there. And then this will be a sparkle iron-on vinyl there. And then over here we've got these pieces. So this is the fabric based top and with seam allowance. And then we've got the batting or the lining. My mother-in-law taught me that when you're first starting out, practicing your applique or practicing your quilting rather, that you can use your old towels and things like that, especially if you're making, when I think my first quilt that I ever made was a blanket for the dog, and she's like, yeah, pop a towel in there, it's easy to wash, it's absorbent, it'll work out really well, and then you're not spending lots of money on beautiful batting. No offense to Charlie, but for the dog. So, and then we've got the hanging loop. So this one we're going to cut it out, we'll fold it in half, press it, then we'll fold it again almost binding style, and then sew that together so that it becomes our loop piece, and then it'll be in this piece. And then there's our base fabric, the backing with seam allowance. So these pieces here all contain their seam allowances. You don't need to change any of those to have them work with your applique piece here. So the applique piece is quite a bit smaller than here, and this has a 1/4 inch seam allowance on it. So when we have a look at that, there will be, so if we take a 1/4 inch away, so a 1/4 inch is 6.35 of a mil. So if we apply that and we we press apply, we can see here, oh, where is our piece? That looks exactly the same size. Hang on, what's going? No. Let's go minus 1/4 inch. So minus 635. There we go. Not sure what happened there. I'll bring that one to the front. So once we have our 1/4 inch seam, we're going to be down to this size, and then our applique piece will go right on top of that. So we'll take that back up to the top as well. And our applique, which will leave us a tiny bit of a border around our pencil. So there already is that seam allowance already built in. So that's what our piece will look like. Okay, we can delete those. Okay, and if we send them over to the machine to cut, what we're going to notice is that we have some pieces are on that slant because that original design was on a slant. So we just need to bump those flat. And the reason we're doing that is we're working with fabric. So we need to take into account our grain of our fabric and the way that it's running. So something like this, for example, we just need to be a little mindful of how we're running that grain, because if the grain of the fabric is all running that way, then we're going to be a little bit frayed on this edge. Of course, our heat and bond is going to prevent any fraying, but we just need to be mindful that if we are making pieces on fabric without heat and bond, and we're going to be doing tight corners, or even like these sort of triangle pieces, we're going to run into examples where we're going to have the tips are going to be a little bit frayed, or the edges are going to be frayed. Even on this nice big yellow piece, we've got those scallops at the bottom, and they will fray if they've not got some sort of stabilization. So if you're going to do something like this but without the heat and bond, you might want to do some starch spraying. You might even want to do just a little bit of a stabilizer with it as well. But heat and bond will prevent all of the fraying that we're going to have here today. Okie dokie, so we're going to go over and continue to cut these, and then we'll meet you back. Okie dokie. So I have my auto press mat. I don't actually have an auto press, but I really love the mat because it's like non-stick. It's great. I love it. Anywho, so I've got my towels. I got 3 for $5, and this will make 6 because I'm going to cut them in half. And then I've got my fat quarters. So this is actually candy colour, and it's quite dark. If we put it against a pink, you can sort of see, like, this is a dusty rose pink, and this one's quite a bright candy pink. So these are Prima cotton, the homespun cottons. They're the ones sold by Spotlight. I really love these colours because they have the colour written on it, and you can always get more of those colours. Whereas sometimes when you buy these sort of fat flats, or flat fats as they're called, you may or may not be able to find them again. And you go onto the Spotlight website and say, I want the Prima homespun. You can buy it by the metre, or you can buy it by the fat quarter, and you say straw, and you know you're getting straw. Okay, so this is going to be my eraser colour. Then this will be my under piece for the metal, and then the holographic sparkle will go on top of that. Then this one's called Lemon Chrome, and it's almost like, like the American school bus yellow. I know it doesn't look like that on the screen, but in real life that's what it looks like. This is straw, so that's going to be my pencil, the water of my pencil, and this is going to be the background layer. So the lead will also be this colour because why not? Okay, I think I'm going to do a white pencil tea towel on this one as well. So what we'll do is we'll open these up. I just love that they're such good value. $5 for 3. It's fantastic. Proper white ones. They're 100% cotton. Do not bleach. Well, we're not going to bleach it. That'll be fine. And then on the other side, 100% cotton absorbent. They've also got microfiber ones, which you can use infusible inks on, which is also fantastic. Okay, so with the towel, they are quite big, so I'm going to take that towel and I'll do it in half, and then I will take that and cinch it in, and then that'll go into the pencil, and that makes my T-town. Okay. So the white doesn't need any heat and bond, so that can go straight into being cut. Oh my gosh. I can dare say that these won't sale because the stickers stuck to them, so maybe the sticker's been on them for a while. That's going to be a bit of a problem because as I'm working with it, if it goes through anything dusty or mucky, it's going to stick to it. Oh gosh, glitter. I used glitter at Christmas time, first time I ever did that, and oh my gosh, glitter went everywhere. Okay, so the white doesn't need much doing to it because we're just going to iron that out a little bit flat. There's a mark on it too. Look at that. Not even brand new, it's got a mark on it. I'm going to use my mini press because these are cotton. I'm going to do it on medium, which is the cotton recommended cotton setting. If you look on the Easy Press heat guide, by all means, if you've got a different type of fabric, check the Easy Press heat guide because that will tell you what to do. I just know by the fact that I've used it a lot, that 2 is for cottons, your basic cottons. It's actually for your basic cottons and your everyday iron-on as well, as goes on the number 2. So I'll wait for that to heat up. That won't take very long. The straw, we'll get the stickers off it. That's going to be the wood for the pencil. So this has a hanging tag on it. Oh gosh, it really stuck on there. Now this piece will need some heat and bond popped on top of it. And because I don't want to do that afterwards, I do it before it gets cut. I'm going to pop the heat and bond on the wrong side, and then I'm going to put fabric side down on my mat and then cut it in mirror. That way the heat and bond, which is this stuff here, has like a glue, a little glue, like lots of little glue dots, and when you iron it onto one side it goes onto the fabric, and then when you iron that fabric onto another fabric it bonds the fabrics together. But this glue, once you bind it onto the fabric, if you put it fabric side down on your fabric mat, often what happens is you'll get little bits of the glue will stay on your fabric mat and come away from your fabric. So I always do that mirrored. Okay, this is heated up. This heated up a little bit ago, but that's okay. So I'm just going to iron this a little bit, and then I will trim it to size. So when we look back at the mats, it said that I needed just one single 12 by 12 to get this one done. So here we go. It doesn't need to be too great. I just want to make sure that I'm not going to have any fabric that wants to, with the memory of the fold, pull back up off my mat. These will stick to the fabric mats quite well. And often I don't even bother ironing because the fabric mat will hold it, but I don't want any of like those up here where it's solid. Okay, so I've got my stuff here. Take this bit. And I have a seam allowance up here, so I want to take it past the seam allowance. There we go. Oh, not seam allowance, what's that up there? This, oh, I can't even remember the name for that right now, sorry. Okay, so we've got that stuck down. And then I'm going to use my fabric scissors just to trim that up. And this way I can use the rest of the fabric as I need to. So based on that, okay, snip, snip, snip. And it did need to go almost all the way to the top. Of course you could have used your rotary cutter, it's just in my toolbox and this was right next to me, and cut it out before you popped it onto the mat, but I didn't. So I have left that mark in because I will inevitably want to use that fat quarter for something that's not going to be covered up, whereas this here, fingers crossed, I'll be able to cover that up. I'm going to grab my rotary blade and pop it in my machine, and then we will get cracking. So here's my rotary blade. I do have one that needs its little blade changed, so fingers crossed I haven't picked that one up. Changing the rotary blades is quite simple, and if I need to change it now, I guess it's a good time to do it, show you guys how to do it as well. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that into my machine. Bring my machine a little bit closer. Let's see if I can take this over so you can see the machine. Okay, just open this. Slide this in. Over on Cricut, I'm pressing cotton as the materials, and then we'll get it set to go. At the moment what it's doing is it's taking the mat in to make sure I've got enough materials. That's something the Maker 3 does, just to make sure, but because we're using a mat, it's really only checking to see if we've got a full mat in there. And then when I press go, it's going to take this over and make sure I've got the rotary blade in my machine. I really love that feature because I do get quite forgetful sometimes, and having the ability for it to go, oh hang on Nat, the last project you did was maybe I was cutting vinyl or cutting leather or something like that, and rather than just forging ahead and ruining my materials and perhaps even ruining the blade, it's going to check to make sure I have the right one in. I just, that's, yeah, it's a big thing for me. Okay, so it's just cutting now. Okay, so it's popped out, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lift this just to see how it cut. So I don't know, I did mention before that I've got one that's, the blade is almost due to be replaced, and it looks like it's this one that needs to be replaced. It's almost cut proper but not quite. So, and because I've lifted it up the way I did, if I hadn't have taken it up as much, if I had have just taken it up this far, I could have pressed play again and then had it cut it again, but the blade does need changing. So what I'll do is at this point I have to at least take this piece out, because this piece I've already manipulated enough that it won't be on the same cutting path anymore. So I'm just going to, luckily this is the binding piece. Where are we? Here. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to remove this piece from the cutting path so that the rest of it is undisturbed from its path. Okay, there we go. Now, I've really only done that so that when I press play again, it's not going to try and cut this rectangle and cut it in a spot different to where it was already going to cut. It's following that same path. So I can press play again, and it's going to go over and start its whole process again, and it will cut across the same path line. Because I haven't ejected the mat, it's still holding it in the same place, and it still has that same path in mind. So it's going to cut those two big pieces identical to the way it cut it the first time. If I had have removed the mat, we would have changed the cutting path. And then when I pulled this up and put it back down, I run the risk that I change the cutting path on that one as well. This one here, because we're going to fold that in half and press it, and then we'll fold each of these little wings in as well to make our little strap. It's not going to matter that this isn't perfect, but for the applique pieces I want it to be perfect. So we'll just get this one cut out, and then we'll go about and we'll change that blade. So you can see now it's actually trying to cut that square, but because there's no fabric there, it's not going to cut anything. Okay, so now it tells us we can have a quick look. So what I'm going to do is I'm just, look at that, that came away beautiful. But there are little pieces where it's stuck, and that's because that blade needs to be changed. Okay. Now generally when you do this, you should be able to just pull it up and out comes your beautiful piece. But because my blade is, and I use it a lot, I use the rotary blades a lot, they're my most used blade. Maybe not so much now that I've become an ambassador. Maybe it's a bit of a 50-50 between this one and the fine tip blade. But before I was an ambassador, this was my most used blade, the rotary blade. I did a lot of fabric and a lot of quilting, a lot of sewing pieces, a lot of felt pieces. Chinese New Year's coming up, for example, and I've made a felt dumpling box, and so it has a little steamer with loads of little dumplings and things like that ready to go in it. And I cut all my felt pieces out, and when you're cutting pure wool felt, your blade does get a little bit, it does wear your blade down a little bit, but like any quilter knows, you do have to change your rotary blades, even if you've got one of those bigger rotary tools. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press pause on this, and we're going to grab the tools to switch that rotary blade out. Okay, so I have gone and got mine new rotary blade replacement kit out of my toolbox, and so I knew that this one was due to be replaced, and we can see, if I grab a bit of scrap, there is some debris sort of fluff on it, but that wouldn't be the reason why it wasn't cutting. And these I probably run through, I don't know, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 a year, but then I do a lot of cutting with my rotary blade. So I also have an elastic band here, because I tend to find that my fingers don't get enough grip on the tiny little screwdriver, that's inside the little kit. So I like to wrap an elastic band around it just to give me some extra grip. So inside the little kit, now this little kit I got from, oh gosh, I can't even remember. I think the local Spotlight has it on sale online only, and I think Harvey Norman also has it online only. I haven't been able to go anywhere and get it in store, so I have to buy these online, but I generally get them when they're on sale, or I've got a coupon. So for example, if you bought your Cricut from Harvey Norman, you've got a 25% off coupon in your product care booklet. You can use that on these sort of things, and you can also you know, those the Spotlight ones where you get the discount, you know, those sort of ones. So I generally pay around $18 to $21 for the little piece. I think Spotlight has them as a regular sale price. I think it's around $25. I can't remember off the top of my head, so don't quote me on that one. But what you do is, inside the kit you get an empty case, and you get a cover, a case that has a little blade inside it. You can see it just down the bottom. That's our new blade, and what it's doing is we're going to place this one in. Screw side goes up here, place it in here until it clicks, and then we're going to unscrew this one, and oh no, this one's alright, but I do like the extra leverage of the elastic band. Okay, and we're just going to unscrew all of that. Such a tiny little screwdriver, but at least they give it to you, because I tell you what, otherwise I'd be like running around looking for screwdrivers. Okay, and then when we pull it out, the old blade stays inside and the little housing comes out. I like to just dust it off, and it looks like I've been doing a lot of blue felt. There's a lot of light blue felt in there. There we go. Dust that out, and then grab the new one. So how do we tell which is the old and which is the new since I put it down? This one, let me see if I can get it clear enough for you. In any case, this one's got debris and blue felt around the outside, and I can also see that it's not as shiny or new, and it's got debris around the blade, where this one here is all clean and perfect on both sides. Okay, so we're going to pop that back in. That was our screw side, so one side's got the screw on the top and the other side's where the blade goes, so we have it screw side up and we slot it in, and then we pop in that screw and we screw it back in, and that's it. It's a fairly easy process, and I really like that this is a case of you can't cut yourself with this one, whereas sometimes with the other blades, with your other rotary cutters and things like that, you have to just be very careful to make sure you don't cut yourself. So that's it. Our blade's fully replaced and ready to go, and we'll pop it back in the machine and get the rest of the cutting pieces up and running. So you can keep the screwdriver. This one here, it's got a sharp inside it, so what I do is I actually I flick it out into the sharps box because I do a lot of sewing and things like that. So I have a lot of sewing needles and machine needles and things like that. So I have a little sharps box. So I'll actually flick that out into the sharps, and then I put these rigidy pieces. I do store my rotary blade in them, but the ones that I have extra, I just put them in my hard plastic recycling. Okie dokie, so we can get rid of those little pieces. There are quite nice instructions on how to change your blade over as well. Although the elastic band idea is not in there, that's just something I've added myself because often my fingertips are not strong enough to grip. Okie dokie. The next piece we're going to cut with the Cricut is grey. Alrighty, so having a look at the map, or the Cricut mats, it looks like I need a 13 by 4 centimeter piece of cotton. So I'll just roll this out a little, and then sort of eyeball against my mat. So I've got my washable pen here, and I needed about 13 centimeters. So that's just past that fold there. 13, and then we need to go down 4. And if you've got a tape measure, that makes it a lot easier. I, for whatever reason, decided I didn't need one today, and it's in my toolbox. Okay, so I'm just going to cut that piece out, apply some heat and bond, and then we'll go about cutting it. Now that I've ironed it, I'm going to put the heat and bond on the back, and I've got a little bit of overhang here, which I can either put onto a mat. I don't want it to stick to my lovely new auto pressing mat. So now that I've got this on, I'm just going to press the edit button on my canvas, on my mat screen, and I'm going to mirror those two pieces as well, just so that I don't accidentally get my heat and bond stuck to my mat. And I'm going to search cotton, press done, have it remember those settings so I don't have to do that again. Okay, so this bit is just ironed onto here, which is okay. I'm okay with that. And what I can do now is I can either leave it on or I can peel it off if I want to. I'm not too precious about it. I'm just going to attach my fabric to my mat, and I've got the heat and bond side up so that when I go over to my mat, it's going to cut it in a mirror, like you would do with your iron-on materials. Let's move this back over, and I'll press play. My scraps, my snips. Okay, so now it's said that it's cut it, so what we can do is lift it up a little, make sure it's checked. Okay, and we bring it back down, and then that's that beauty of that new blade. And that's back when we were seeing, I was having the trouble with the little snips around the side here. We can see there's none of that sort of difficulties here. So we pick this up. The paper, we can discard that now if we want to. It doesn't really serve a purpose anymore other than to protect our heat and bond. And they're ready to go. They're already heat and bonded, and they're the right shapes for our little pencil. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and do the others. Here we go. And we will see you on the flip side. Okie dokie. So we are finished with all these pieces, and we've got them all, the heat and bond is on all of them. This is how my little pencil will look, which I know it's looking a little bit plain at the moment, but just remember that I'm going to put some iron on top of this, and it's got to go on its backing, which will be one of these. Okay, so we're going to position these in the right sort of spaces, and then we're going to try and centre it up as best we can so we don't encroach on our seam allowances. And then we are going to iron those little pieces onto our backing, and then we'll take it over to the machine and do our decorative stitches around the edge. So I'm doing raw edge applique, which is the heat and bond on raw edges. If you're doing needle turn, you might want to attach the batting to the back of your piece to give you some sort of place to hide all of your back stitches and things like that. And if you're doing sort of crazy embroidery, what do they call that, the quilting embroidery, the patchwork, crazy patchwork embroidery, that's what it's called, on your pieces, by all means, you know, you can go ahead and do that at this point as well. I'm going to pop mine in machine, and I'm going to do some decorative machine stitches, whatever comes with the machine, and just go with that. I got a new machine towards the end of the year for my birthday, and I'm going to see what decorative stitches came with that one, and we will see you on the flip side. Alrighty. Okie dokie, so I appliqued it. I ended up using my quilting machine, and it had an unusual blanket stitch, but it looks alright, and I'm happy with it. I didn't cut my batting only because I had these little pieces of scrap, and they will go over just. So what I will do is I will pop that there, and pop this wrong side facing, right side facing, and what I will do is I will stitch my 1/4 inch seam from here up and around and to here. I will stitch this as well, and I will add this in here, so it'll be like this, and I'll pin that, grab my pins in a sec, and then I'll stitch from this side to this side, leaving this front bit open for where it's going to be taking in the towel, so that the towel can go in there, and I think that will look okay. So I think with just the tips down it'll be okay. Yeah. Okay, so this has done, and what I do is I'll trim the batting off. So I went as far as here on my piece. I'm going to trim that batting off, but I did just notice that one of those was a little close, so I want to double check that before I jump out. Okay, so I have cut my towel in half as well, and I've got the raw edge here. I'm not going to worry about serging that or anything else like that, because I'm going to tuck that into the cavity here. So I'll move the towel for now, and we'll trim around here. Now, if you had the machine, the Cricut, cut your batting for you, you don't need to do this bit. It was just that I had a piece that was the perfect size. There was no room for error on the sides, so I have to do it this way. And that's all I had left over. Okay, so now what I can do is I can flick this out. Get those corners out. And I can press that, and there's the start of our pencil. Now, with the batting, I'm going to trim a little bit off that as well, just so that I make room for the tea towel, and we need to cinch that in, so we put it here so I can cinch it in. And what I'm going to do is fold it in half, so I can get that half point. so there's my halfway point, and then I'm just going to pleat in. Now I like to pleat them like this because that way they're still laying flat, whereas if you sort of did a ruffle stitch, you'd end up with this extra bulk here, whereas this one, it lays quite flat. So that's why I like to do the pleats. Now, we are still too big. Slightly too far over, but if we fold these bits in, a little bit there, and a little bit more here, should be okay. Yeah, we'll get that in there. Okay, so what oh my gosh, just rip that one out. I'm going to repin those, and then I'm going to run a stitch right across that, a basting stitch right across there, and then I will come back and we will stuff that into the cavity and then sew that up. There we go, that fits, and I will do a basting stitch right across here just to hold that in place, and then I will, with my mini press, I will come along here and do just a little tiny turned edge, just enough to sort of turn it over that I can stitch into, and I might reinforce that with a bit of starch, and then we will get that crack-a-lacking. So okay, so I've turned that inside out, I've ironed it, and I've ironed this little, can you see? Oh gosh, the light's really bad there. There we go. And I've ironed that little seam down a little bit, just a little bit, and I've trimmed the batting. Oh, there we go. I've trimmed the batting just so that it fits inside. It doesn't matter if it's a bit doctored up like I've done it. Realistically, I'm making space so that my tea towel fits in between the hem and the batting. Okay, so I've also basted my tea towel into its shape, and now what I can do is I can pin or tack my tea towel in here, and now I'm not too worried about this tack stitch here because I can get rid of that, but if I wanted to hide it all in there, that's possible as well. I just should have done it a bit closer to the edge if that's what I was going to do. Unfortunately, oh no, I've done all right. Okay, so then that puts our towel in. Make sure I'm on the right side. Here we go, that puts that in. Okay, and this one's in. Check, 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 check. And I can pin that down. Make sure my pleats look like they're in the right place. Alrighty, so now what I can do is I can tack that down. I, for whatever reason, have given myself these. That's not what I need. I need pins, and then I'm going to stitch across here with a small top stitch just along the edge here, and that edge will pick up the back there, and then I'm going to carry on my top stitch and go right around the edge here, so then my tea towel is secured into the space, and also I've cleaned up the edges by just top stitching that down. I'm going to grab my pins and then I'll sew that together, and then we will be back. Okie dokie, so it is attached, and I did a little top stitch around the edge. You can see I went a bit off a little bit, but I haven't been sewing in a few months, so I feel like, you know, practice makes perfect. I'm quite happy with how this is, and now I have my iron-on. This is my little bag of my iron-on scraps that are all shinies or gold. So I have, that's not iron-on, I have some gold or silver, and I think this here will be enough, and this is scrap left over from a project. I probably did this during a demo at Harvey Norman actually. We were doing New Year's Eve shirts with it. So I think this will go over that. So I will cut that out and then we will iron that on and then it will be finished. Okie dokie. So I've got it weeded and I got that on there pretty good actually. Oren's waiting with bated breath to see what on earth Mummy has been making. So I'm just going to line that up there. I think it will fit. I think that's about right. So this is holographic sparkle iron-on, and out of all those little pieces I got a bunch of these little squares as well. I'm going to keep those at the side for something else. Maybe a disco ball. Who knows? Okay, iron that on. So this just needs 30 seconds at constant movement at medium heat for the holographic sparkle. It's really pretty. At the moment I think the only place I've seen it in shops is at Harvey Norman, and it's actually on sale at the moment. I got myself some for Christmas because I thought, why not give myself a Christmas present? Oh, and then I've got to remember it's a cool peel, so squish this down, wait for it to cool, then we'll peel it. I'm quite happy with how that's in there. That's given a nice sturdy. I did do 2 rows of stitching just here just to give it extra reinforcement because this is going to be in my toddler's backpack for his hand towel for school. Oh, he's very excited in the background. Wait for that to finish. I really love this. I got this for Christmas myself. Well, you know, I bought it and told myself the kids bought it for me. Okay, there we go. And now that's it. Just adds a little bit of sparkle. I'm not sure it completely needed it, but I do like to add a little bit of iron onto these sort of things. And this was a scrap piece of vinyl that was left over. And yeah, I might even do the little love heart on the tea towel. But the holographic sparkle, it's much like our glittery iron-on, where it's not stretchy and soft. It's a bit like foil on top of the fabric. So maybe I won't do that on the actual towel piece. But I'm really loving how that looks. The sparkle, just that little bit of sparkle. And then on the little tea towel. So I'm going to give this to Oren and see what he thinks. And hopefully I'll get this uploaded before the end of January, and then it'll be like, yay, winning goals. And yeah, so fingers crossed that this has been an in-depth sort of tutorial on how to do this sort of things, and little tips and tricks on how to do the tea towels, how to cut some fabrics, how to change the blade and things like that. If there's anything else I can help you with, let me know in the comments below. If there's anything you'd like to see in the future, let me know. And fingers crossed you guys have a fantastic afternoon, a fantastic week, and I will see you another time. Okay, bye.